Hello Future Tech leaders, I'm Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. At CloudFoundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds. Join us as we dive into SailPoint, an identity governance technology, and discover how it helps businesses manage security and compliance.
So, guys, this is what we are going to learn in the next 30 sessions. We have some new folks who are freshers. We have some experienced guys. So this course content will be suitable for both of them. So now in the first session, we are going to talk about all the IAM concepts basically. Because before getting to SailPoint, you should know what is IAM. We can talk about SailPoint, that's fine, but you should know what is IAM as well. So without understanding these IAM concepts and fundamentals of IAM, we cannot start. So we will talk about what is IAM, why do we require, what is the purpose behind that. Everything we will talk about that. So once we talk about IAM, we will talk about SailPoint advantages and all. What is the advantages of having SailPoint rather than having other IAM tools like Savient? Instead of SailPoint, the client could have chosen Savient, Okta, Sundyne, some other solution tool, IAM solution tool. So what is the advantages we are having in SailPoint? We will talk about that. So after that chapter, we will talk about the software and hardware requirement because you may get a chance to implement SailPoint on real-time project. So in that scenario, you are going to design the architecture. As an architect, not as a support engineer or developer, but definitely you should have a knowledge. So how to implement SailPoint? You have to design the architecture document. In that scenario, you should know what are the softwares are required, how you are going to define the hardware. It depends. So we will talk about on a high level. So if you get a requirement, so which application server, what type of application server we are going to implement. So whether database server are required or not, from where we are going to gather the software, SailPoint software. And how we are going to decide this much RAM is enough, this much CPSB is required, these many servers are required. So we will talk about software and hardware requirements. In the next chapter, we will talk about SailPoint implementation. SailPoint installation. It depends. In real-time project, no one is going to involve in this activity unless if you are part of the infrastructure team. Because in real-time project, infrastructure team will take care of this activity. But in your local machine, you are the one who is going to implement SailPoint. So we will learn how to implement SailPoint on your machine. In individual, also they may ask how to install SailPoint. So definitely you should know how to do that. Guys, once we install SailPoint in your local machine, maybe your laptop or your muscle system, so it will be like a clean slate. Nothing will be there except some configuration file and except some object. So we need to the ultimate purpose of implementing SailPoint so that we can manage, maintain, track all the employee activity as well as their access. So it's all about identity management and their access management. So in that scenario, in order to perform that, you should onboard HR application first. So let's start with HR application onboarding. Nowadays, we have some advanced application like Workday, SuccessFactors, Employee Central, and PeopleSoft. So these 4, I remember we may have some advanced application too. So we will learn how to onboard this application and we'll learn the purpose behind the application onboarding. Very briefly, we are not going to onboard only HR application. What is the meaning of onboarding? Means like how we correlate that. That's a good question. So onboarding is nothing. It's a fancy word. I would say it's a process. It's a process of integrating the application with SailPoint, the same thing which you mentioned, Workday. Exactly. So we have to integrate Workday application with SailPoint. So the entire process, we may call it as onboarding and application, onboarding Workday application, something like that. So the purpose, SailPoint can aggregate the data. SailPoint can consume those data so that we can manage in one place. It's like a unified portal. So we can manage everything with the help of SailPoint. If you want to manage, let's imagine you don't have a SailPoint in place and you want to manage all the user data. So each and every time you cannot rely on different application. So if you have a centralized system like SailPoint, we can manage everything from SailPoint. So that's the ultimate idea. You got it, guys? So we'll talk about application onboarding very briefly. So how to onboard HR application? We may have some third-party applications. We may have some different type of application. How to onboard that first of all? So once you onboard those applications, how to aggregate the data? Aggregate is nothing. It's like a reconciliation. Because now you have one end, you have a SailPoint. Another end, you have a target application. The target application could be any application. So make sure SailPoint will consume those data, which means we have to synchronize between both the platforms. From target application to SailPoint and SailPoint to target application. So how to synchronize that? We'll talk about that. So once the application, onboarding and the aggregation is done. So once the application onboarding is done, we will talk about the access permission, like what is group, what is roles, what is entitlement, capabilities, how to manage them, how to monitor them, how to aggregate them, because sometimes, not sometimes. Always the groups and entitlements will be managed and created by application team because they know their application very well. So they have already defined. So if any end user is looking for some basic access, then we have to assign this group. If anyone is looking for admin level access, then we have to assign this group. And some user may require for read-only access. Some user require for read and write access. It depends. So application team, definitely they would have created this access permission from their end. So most of the time SailPoint will aggregate those group data, as we are going to aggregate the user data as well. So once we aggregate the group data, we can manage those groups. You may call it as entitlement capability. And sometimes SailPoint is responsible to create those groups, entitlement as well. Due to some unfortunate situation, you make a requirement from stakeholder. Say these entitlement needs to be created. You cannot say we won't create entitlement. The entitlement, most of the time, it will be created by application team. But definitely we should know how to create these entitlement as well. Are we clear so far? Anyone has any question? Guys, if you have any question, try to clarify now. Because this is what we are going to cover in the next 20 to 30 session. So entitlement, it's fine. So once we have an entitlement, we will. In the next chapter, we are going to talk about roles. So what is role? What type of role we have in SailPoint? So what type of role we are going to implement and which will be used by end users? So how to manage them? How to modify? So we'll talk about in that perspective. So once roles and entitlement chapters are done, we will talk about attributes. What type of out-of-the-box attribute we have in SailPoint? When I mean out of the box, what does that mean? Can any one of you explain? What is out of the box? Something that's within SailPoint, already present. Something comes from the tool. We are not adding anything. So out of the box is nothing. It's an existing functionality. Whenever we are going to implement any software, any application, some default functionality, some default components will be there. So we may call it as out-of-the-box functionality. Out-of-the-box object, it depends. Out of the box is nothing. It's an existing functionality or whatever features comes as a default. Because when I joined Sail, when I used to work for SailPoint initially, I thought out of the box means we have to think out of the box, which means it's related to customization. Out of the box means it's an existing functionality. I hope you guys are fine with the IAM terminologies. Maybe IAM terminologies. Just let me know away. We will have one more session to discuss about the IAM terminologies. I mean SailPoint. I need like little bit of IAM terminology. I mean you do this one little bit. Because you should know what is entitlement, what is group, what is policy certification, what is work item. Because we are going to discuss a lot about these terminologies. Because I will use these phrases very often. So you should understand. The moment I am going to say work item, you should know what is work item. The moment I am going to say managed attribute, bundle or entitlement, whatever it may be, you should understand. You should be in a place to understand. We will have a session for that too. So we will talk about attribute. What is out of the box attribute and what is extended attribute? Because based on these attributes, developers and other people, they are going to write some rules. Let's say we are going to perform some activity. Activity will be performed by client. Let's take an example. Now clients are saying, we need to exclude these employees. Maybe some finance department employee. Or maybe Australian location employee. We should exclude them because we are not going to involve those people in this activity. As a developer, you have to write some rule to exclude them. So now here we have some attribute called department. We have some attribute called location. Based on these attribute, you are going to write some rule. Imagine a scenario if there is no attributes are available. So what will you do? You have to create on your own. Once you get the approval, so you should know how to create these attributes. Attributes are nothing. It's like a placeholder. We'll talk about that briefly. So as of now, try to understand. So we will learn how to create this custom attribute, or you may call it as extended attribute, and how to manage them and all. How to assign the values and all, we will learn. So once the attribute chapters are done, we will talk about task. So task is a backbone. I would say it's a backbone of SailPoint, like automated provisioning or not. So it's one of the backbone of SailPoint. So we talk about what are the out-of-the-box tasks we have. What type of task category we have in SailPoint. How to create custom tasks. And how to schedule these tasks because each and every time the task has to be executed manually. If you want to automate this process, in that scenario, how to schedule these tasks so that whenever the particular time arrives, the task should get executed automatically without any manual intervention. So how to do that? How to change the time interval? We will talk about that briefly. And if you have a fresher, then definitely we should talk about how to monitor these tasks. Because as a level 1-2 support engineer, you guys are going to monitor these tasks on a daily basis. This will be your primary job, primary task. So you should know how to monitor these tasks. If any task is going to end up with failure or end up with warning, so what will be the next step? Are you going to capture the log? How to do the troubleshoot? So something like that. So we will talk about this very briefly. And as well as report as well. So task and reports both belong to the same category. We will talk about that. Once task and reports are done, we will talk about capability. Capability is nothing. So it's similar to entitlement. If it is for some other application, you may call it as entitlement. You may call it as groups. But if you want to control your own application, like SailPoint, SailPoint is our own application. And the same way, we should create our access permission on our own based on the requirement. So in that scenario, how to create them, how to manage them. It's all about capability. Capability is nothing. It's a way of controlling user access on the SailPoint application. And we should learn how to assign these capabilities automatically based on their job function, based on their nature of job. If they are developers, then we should assign developer capability so that they can access all the SailPoint functionality based on their job. If they are a QA person, if they are an architect, if they are a system administrator, so then we should provide all access. Like if they are a system administrator, we should provide full access so we can control these features with the help of capability. Once these capabilities are done, we will talk about certification. Do you guys have any idea what is certification? Other folks? User access review kind of thing. User access review. If you don't mind, can you elaborate that? What is that? Why do we require? If you guys have any idea. I'm not pointing out anyone. Whatever comes on your mind, feel free to talk. Something where you know the access is maintained for that quarter from a manager or user. Ensuring the, governance in organization stays in a direction. And if a person is moving from one department to another, his roles and other access should be blocked and all things. Exactly. So let me put it in a simple way. Let's say you are part of a company. Your access needs to be maintained on a periodic basis. Let's say some critical application access has been assigned to you. Your access needs to be revoked because it's assigned to be man. It could be accidentally assigned. And it could be purposefully assigned, but which is not required to perform your job. So those access will be the result. Stay on your user profile. Now your manager or some other person needs to review your access on a periodical basis. Again, not up or not on a daily basis, they will decide. It depends on the criticality of the application. If it is a critical application, then we should review all the user access on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis. If it is not a critical application, then we can review once in a 6 month, once in a year. So access review means the particular person, or you may call it a certifier. That person will review all the employee access. While reviewing the access, they have some criteria like he is a developer, then this access will be required. If he is not a developer, then access is not required. So they will review all the user access and they will revoke. Revoke means if it is not required, then they will remove the access without any approval. I hope you guys understood what is user access review, which means certification. Does that make sense, guys? Basically, certifier or some particular identity. A particular person will review all the user access if the access is required. If the application access is required, they will leave as it is. If the application access is not required, they will take the necessary action to remove the access immediately without any approval. So it's all about certification. So in SailPoint, we have different type of application. So we'll talk about all different type of application along with that. So certification is a big process. Like here, lot of teams are going to involve. So first, governance team are going to involve. Second, stakeholders. Third, certification team. Fourth, support engineer. SailPoint support engineer. Fifth, SailPoint developers. So, as I said, these people are going to involve to fulfill and to complete the certification process. Governance team and certification team. They are going to involve and they will decide. This is the application, what we need to review. And this is how we are going to review. These are the phases needs to be fulfilled. And this application needs to be reviewed once in a 6 month. Execution frequency. So everything they will decide and they will create one certification. And the certification items will forward it to the certifier. So here, certifier also is going to involve in this activity. So certifier is the one who is going to review the access. Once you reviewed and some access is not required, so certifier will provide his decision. This access is not required for this person. So remove this access immediately. So the access removal will happen. As usual, it may be automated process. It may be manual process. In between this activity, in this process, if anything goes wrong, maybe certifier is not able to take his access. Certification team is not going to configure the certification from there and they are facing any technical issue. So support engineer will pitch in and he will resolve this issue. And when developer is going to involve any idea in this activity, so developer will involve. As I said already, in this activity, if you want to exclude some set of people, some set of identities, if you want to exclude some set of applications to be reviewed. So in that scenario, developer will pitch in and he will write some customization rule or exclusion rule. So this is all certification we are going to learn on a 360-degree view. Does that make sense? So in the next chapter, we are going to talk about SOD policies. So what type of policy we have in SailPoint like SOD policies? We may have some generic policies. So depends on the requirement how to implement that. Once the policy is activated, if any employee is going to violate those policies, how the policy violation is going to trigger. Once the policy violation is triggered, how to manage them. As a support engineer, if they are facing any technical issue, how to resolve them, how to troubleshoot them, how to capture the logs, and how to rectify that. So we will learn everything. It's all about creation of policies, monitoring, managing, and providing support. So we will learn from all perspectives. Reports I told already. So in the task and reports, we will learn on the same one. And we will talk about most of the out-of-the-box reports. And apart from that, we will talk about these provisioning policies. It's related to app onboarding roles and workflows, so provisioning policies are nothing in small. So we will talk about that very briefly. And we will talk about work items, because work items plays the major role in SailPoint. For each and every activity, if you are looking for any approvals or any pending items from other person, so definitely this work item is going to be forwarded to them. And we will get their decision from the help of work item. So how to manage them? How to delegate these work items? How to reassign? If any technical issues, we are not able to approve the work items. So how to manage them? We will talk about that everything. And along with that, we will talk about IAC console. We have a lot of commands over there. We can access SailPoint from front end from GUI page. We can access SailPoint from debug page. It's object browser. You may call it as backend. Along with these two, you have another forum or another way you can access. SailPoint is IAC console. But here you need to know all the commands to access SailPoint. So we will talk about this IAC console very briefly. So after that we will talk about workgroups populations. Why do we require, how to create them, how to manage them, everything. And there is advanced analytics. So in each and every chapter we may require to access this advanced analytics. We will talk about that briefly. And we will talk about this risk management, because each and every project require risk management. If you are going to implement this risk management, we can protect our data. If any danger is going to happen, we can protect our data. At least we can minimize the risk. So we will talk about this risk management. So after that we will talk about provisioning. What is provisioning? So it's very important chapter. So you should know what is provisioning. Can any one of you tell me what is provisioning on a high level? Providing access to somebody. Exactly so, providing access to the end user on a particular application. Because the end user is looking for application access. And we should make sure that requested access has been granted. So that's all about provisioning. Here a lot of operation is going to involve. It could be create operation, it could be modify operation, it could be delete operation. Or maybe we need to enable the account, we need to disable the account. Lot of operations are going to involve in this activity. So we will talk about this provisioning. What is provisioning? And here we are going to discuss about lot of workflows. Because lot of workflows is going to involve in this activity. The moment end user submitted access request in the backend, lot of workflows is going to call one by one. So we'll talk about all the workflows. How to transition the workflow, how to add these variable values. What is arguments variables? How to add a new step. We'll talk about everything. On an out-of-the-box manner. Once the provisioning is done, we will talk about Lifecycle Manager. What is Lifecycle Manager? We'll talk about that when the chapter comes. No worries. Here we have a different type of events like joiner mover, lever, native change reduction, rehire manager transfer. We have lot of events based on the requirement. We have to create this event. So joiner is nothing. Whenever employee is going to join, we'll make sure all the necessary access, all the necessary application access needs to be granted on a day 1 or before day 1. So that employee can join and he can start work and the transition should be smooth. Because initially, let's in the last decade, if any employee is going to join any company, first they will join a company. After that, they will submit a ticket to gain all the application access. It will go for some set of approvals. Once the approval is done, after that, the provision will happen. So anyhow, it's going to take a couple of days to grant the access. But if we are going to implement this joiner method, joiner event on day 1 or before day 1, employee will get access, all the required access. So the transition will be smooth and he can start from day 1. So that's the purpose behind this joiner event implementation. The same applies to mover lever, not this concept, but we can implement this event to new mover, event lever event, native change detection. Rehire is nothing. Employee left the company and he has changed his mind. He is going to rejoin the same company after certain days. So in that scenario, rehire event can be triggered. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.